Average guy, old stories hit high, tells of struggle and strife. Keep your head in the fight. Broken bones in the street, ain't no place for the weak. From the land of the brave, where the words cut deep. Coming next on the air now, feel the despair. Generation X, shout out, shattered somewhere. Rising up from the dark with a fire and spark. Rage and passion combined to leave a lasting mark. Coming next, shouting loud, voices from the crowd. Through the mist of...
Welcome to Common X Podcast, episode 26. We have with us today Madeline Summerville. We are your co-host, Ian Primer and Jared Mazak. How are you doing today, Madeline?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome. Did you have a good weekend?
I did, but we got a lot of storms here in Atlanta, so we all had to kind of crowd in the basement for a minute. There was a tornado watch, so we took it easy, but other than that, it was good.
Man, well, we're happy to have you.
Thank
Jared,
you.
I just got back from our equestrian thing with our daughters, and you lucked out not having to go on that one, man. I had to play a hide and seek, or what I like to call reverse hide and seek, like Gen X sardines, you know? Mm-hmm. And that was very interesting. You think about being in the fairgrounds at night, and your kids are like still kids, but they're kind of like growing up, and they're like, hey, come find us. And then next thing you know, you're with two other equestrian team dads, and you're like, I don't know if this is good. Like we're looking throughout the fairgrounds, looking for things, looking in dumpsters, looking in where's our and like I was worried that, like, you know, I mean, we do this podcast together, brother, and I was worried, you know, like I don't need like Common X personality talking head arrested for looking in utility bin at you know,
fairgrounds.
Yeah, it was a trip, man. But the girls did really good. The equestrian did good. Both teams, Deer Park and Riverside. We're excited to be here. So Madeline, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Madeline. I am an attorney and political analyst from Atlanta, Georgia. And for the last 8 years or so, I've been practicing law. And I literally just stopped taking cases a couple of days ago. It was weird because I had to finally turn, like I got a call and I was like, nope, not going to do it. So for the past 3 years of that 8, I've been working as a jury consultant. And I'm a good lawyer, but I'm better at people. I'm better at understanding and feeling the people around me. And most lawyers are not so good at that. So I kind of made a business out of being an empath and being able to help people understand others. And kind of at the beginning of that venture, I realized that the good guys don't always win and that sometimes the bad guys do. And I just wanted to understand why. Because I was like, if you're telling the truth about something, I don't understand why it's not coming through. So I spent those 3 years studying argument tactics and manipulation tactics and brain hacks, basically, so that I could understand what the other side was doing to try to fight back. And so I know all of those tactics, and then things got really crazy with politics. And I was like, it's a much better use of my time to tell people about this and what's going on because I can spot it and see it on both sides. And, excuse me. And so I started making this TikTok and YouTube channel, but things have been going well on TikTok, which I'm really, really excited about. And there's a group of people who really want to come together on this, because once you realize that everybody's being manipulated, then it becomes a lot less about Republican versus Democrat or like political parties amongst each other, and then just us versus the people who are trying to convince us of something without being honest about it. So that really became the passion that I have. And I'm really grateful that Jared found me, because that's the reason why I'm here. And I conduct these lives, and they're growing little by little every day, because there really is this genuinely wonderful group of people who are like, yes, let's get together and figure out how we can remind each other that we're people and that we're in this together. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And congratulations on your TikTok. I've been watching them. That's everybody. She's at what Madeline Says on TikTok.
Thank you.
It's very thought-provoking. It's very intelligent. I saw one this morning. It was like, if you know that you can't trust your politicians, then how do you know that you can trust the politician you're voting for?
Yeah.
I thought that to be, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
This world of people like, okay, does Coke or Pepsi taste better? I mean, I don't know. I've probably thought I did my entire life and probably changed that a few times, and I still don't have it figured out. So I love your empathy for humanity, and you're posing the questions. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like in studying people for as long as I have, I was able to kind of put words to the feelings that I had about people. Because, you know, when you feel it, you're just like, I know this person isn't telling the truth, or I know that you can trust this person, but I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know what their body language was telling me, or what their words were telling me. And so once I was really able to get in touch with that, I was able to kind of bring people who were super on one side or another to the middle, just by reminding them of the human element of stuff, and also by reminding them of what they value and what they care about. Because I feel like that's what a friend does. Like, a friend helps you stay true to yourself by reminding you what your values are. So yes, there's like a manipulative element to it, but if you're doing it with good intentions of helping that person be themselves, and I think it becomes a little bit more of a good mission.
Yeah, and a little bit better version of themselves too, right? And
Yeah.
I think the other thing, the big narrative is, like, I've been on quite a few TikTok lives as well, both on right and left, and I think there's a big search for truth and people trying to figure out what we all have in common. So I think what you and how you present it, I think, is really great, because we're not attacking, or you're not attacking left or right on their beliefs or thoughts. You're just like, here's the facts, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about the truth and then have that conversation about what you think is true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the little series that I did was how to talk to your family at Thanksgiving, because everybody was really worried about that this past year. And I was like, okay, I got you. Because people were worried about it on both sides. So I did this one where I was like, how to talk to your woke aunt at Thanksgiving. So and
I love
so
that.
I was like, okay, I'll give you this scenario. Let's say you're watching House of Cards, right? And Kevin Spacey, who got canceled, is the lead guy, right? And she says to you, how can you watch this show? Right? How can you do this? You say, why should I be deprived of the show that I like just because he sucks?
Right.
End of conversation.
Yep.
That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it gets easier when you add a little humor to it also. But one of the ways that, if you want to be able to argue with people, first you have to understand that it's not about winning. It's about reaching a deeper truth. And I know that sounds cheesy or corny, but that's what it is. And if you want to be able to be productive in a conversation, I always tell people this: you have to concede something that's true. So a lot of times, because of how I voted and because I've worked with the Democratic Party in the past, people like assume that I would never say the things that I'm saying. So I would say something like, I'm not okay with Kamala Harris dropping fracking, like being okay with fracking all of a sudden. And they're like, really? You're not okay with that? And I'm like, well, yeah. I'll trust the Democratic Party again when Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio doesn't look like it came from Wall Street, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
even though that's how I voted, I can still criticize my own side, and I can offer you something to say, like, hey, you're not going to fight against somebody who's being unreasonable here, because you don't have to defend something that you don't believe in. You don't have to defend something that you don't believe is true. Your allegiance can just be to the truth and not to a party. So
Right.
And I think that's what surprises a lot of people on the right when I join their lives. And they're like, well, we have a lot of stuff in common. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Well, they're like, well, you sound more like a conservative. And I'm like, kind of. Like, if you get back into that middle approach where everybody kind of agrees on these are like the basic human needs.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where you can have that conversation and be aligned with them,
Yeah.
unless they're completely whack jobs, right? That don't believe all humans have like the same basic needs. Then, I can't win an argument with them, or I can't make them see the light. But some of them are just, man, they're hard.
There's this guy whose book I really like. He's a professor of political science at Emory. His name's Drew Weston. And he basically taught me that, like, on each side, like, let's say 100% of voters on the left, 100% of voters on the right, on each side, you got about 30% that constitutes the base that you're not going to change. But
Right.
the 70% is still up for grabs. And so,
I think that's kind of what lost the election for the Democrats this year, is that a lot of people didn't vote.
yeah, most
Like,
people
that's
think, oh, and it's like
right.
crazy.
Like, that's the big narrative here, is like,
Yeah.
people are fed up with government in the United States. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
matter what side. Like both, I think everybody sees that both sides are corrupt, right? Like,
totally.
and they're just like, this voting thing is just for this year, this election. People are just like, I don't know, I don't like either one of them,
Yeah,
so I'm just not going to vote, and I'm going to stay home. So
yeah. So
That's
I didn't mean it was like most people that were it. Sorry, that didn't
right,
vote. It was a huge untapped market. It was the most untapped market of all the ones that people were trying to market to, was the people who didn't vote.
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's pretty incredible. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been accused of kind of leaning left here lately, but I mean, I really don't. Like my community, my neighbors, my friends, my coworkers. Jared and I live in a like, we have horse property. We live in a rural area,
Yeah,
and we're not leaning left. We like really want better for both sides. Like I really want to see the Republican Party do better.
yeah,
We were recently kind of criticized within the community for, hating billionaires or whatever. I don't hate billionaires. I just don't know why the billionaire needs to run the country and, you know, have all the government contracts for their business and everything else, and then completely have everything. I mean, own all the technology, like complete control of everything. And I'm like, well, hey, what about democracy? Like, I was kind of grew up in that, and then, the Rocky movies and everything, like there was the Cold War and all that. And I'm like, well, why are we snuggling up? Like I was just talking to Dolph Lundgren about bringing him onto the show. I'm like, dude, how do we address that? Like, I mean, you were the guy that was like, I must break you or
right,
whatever. And now we're like, we're having meetings with Putin and all this stuff and whatever. And I'm not bashing, the party of my community. I just don't understand it, and I
yeah,
know the folks on the other side, there's people that are hurting that, rely on programs and the Department of Education, people who want to continue their education, brilliant minds that want to continue their education further to help people,
yeah,
and they really have no path now. Like
yeah,
you have a psych major that wants to go into social services and help people, or a lawyer for that matter that wants to help people, and we're cutting the Department of Education. I mean, it's a kind of a critical time that's never been done before, and I don't know what that looks like if we do all of that. We can see the
absolutely.
effect for sure. And man, it doesn't look very good.
It's scary. But I'm the person for the longest time who um would tell people, if they would call me like, should I be scared of this? Like, what's going on? I'd be like, nope, don't be scared. Not a big deal. Everything's fine. I don't really say that anymore. But I also don't think that we as Americans have lost something. Like we still, the people at the top still need our attention. They still need our support. They still need our favor. And I think that the best way to try to get people to understand what you're saying, which really is just, I should be able to love the people around me and care about their futures. And I should be able to trust the people who are representing me, right? Is just reminding people of what their values are. And I tell people, like, you don't have to trust what I'm saying. Trust your heart. And if you feel like you've been in a position for a long time where you couldn't trust your heart or your intuition, just keep digging because it's there. Like you will find it. And then do what your heart tells you to do. I mean, I won't go into it. I got my whole perspective on the billionaires and the tech bros and
oh, you can go into it.
are you
We can
sure?
talk. Oh
Okay.
yeah,
Woo.
Here we
I'm
go.
pretty aligned with you on it, so we can talk for days,
Okay.
honestly.
You have
Okay,
to
cool.
remember, when we started this podcast, we started off with, I call it, saying that Elon Musk was a threat to democracy. And that was before I even knew that he got involved with it. That was just my personal feelings of Elon Musk. So you're in a safe space.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and I
I've
think
since
what
like tried to be less critical of him so I can understand him. But yes,
I appreciate that.
we've had some thought provoking discussion on here before.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think we did an episode on corporate greed where we kind of talked about this before all this voting and
Yeah,
Trump even came to power. So it was just like there is this, I think, how do I want to say this? I want to be politically correct. I don't know. I think there's this narrative in America that like corporations can do no wrong, and like the richest people in the world are the smartest people in the world, and we
Yeah.
should listen to them and do whatever they say because they know
Yeah.
what's best for everybody.
Yes.
But they don't. And some of the stuff that's coming out from like some of their secret meetings and the way they believe is honestly, it's scary and what they want our country to become. So I think that is the thing that should align people, and the thing we need to wake people up on is like, this is what's really happening. Like, here's all
Yeah.
the smoke and mirrors, right? Of
Yeah.
Doge and all the other ridiculous stuff they're telling
Yeah.
us, right? But in the back end, they're trying to do this narrative that you won't notice.
Yeah. And I think what you said is very well taken, and it's very difficult to help people realize that the reason why they think that corporations can be trusted and the reason why they think that they're smarter than all of us is because that's the BS that they've been fed. Like there's been a very targeted marketing campaign for the last 40 years, really for the last 80 years, for people to believe that, just linking faith, freedom, and jobs. Like there's a lot of evidence of this. There's this book that I read called One Nation Under God by Kevin Cruz. And it taught me a lot about how corporations started disliking getting regulated. And I can walk you guys through that because I've started narrowing it down a little bit more and a little bit more so that I can put it into bite-sized pieces to be able to give to people. And I say to people as a jury consultant, I tell lawyers, your job is to arm your jurors with phrases, like your best jurors with phrases to repeat when you're not in the room. Like
Right.
you have to arm your advocates with phrases that they can repeat, because that's really all the like legacy media is doing, is just giving you phrases for you to articulate how you're feeling.
Right. The sound bites.
Yes. And
Yep.
so, and this is one way that you got to fight fire with fire. So that's the hard piece is convincing them that they have been conditioned to feel that way. Because if you're trying to do that in an argument with somebody, they're not going to admit it to you in the moment. You might plant a seed though. If you can do it in a compassionate way, you might plant a seed where they start digging. And the cool thing about that is if they keep digging, they'll find the truth. So,
Right.
so here's the billionaire spiel. So,
Mhm.
and it does go back actually to FDR. So it's interesting that everybody keeps citing FDR and the Trump administration right now,
Right.
but they're doing it in a way that is very disingenuous. Because, and I guess before I say all of this, please know I grew up in an incredibly religious environment. I'm a very traditional human being. I moved from Indianapolis to Georgia and married a guy who grew up on a farm and knew how to drive a tractor at age 4. Like they had cows and produce, and we spend every weekend going to the farmer's market. That's what we do. So like I was enchanted by the Southern grandma with the apple pie in the window since I was little. Like I wanted to move here because that's what I liked.
Mhm.
So I always tell people, like, if I ever ran for something, which I have no intention of doing right now, like no plans, it would be like on religious freedom and farmers. And that sounds crazy to people because I'm on the left, but those are the things that I care about. So when I'm telling people this, I just want them to know that I'm not telling them to try to brainwash them. I'm not telling them to try to tell them something to come to my side. My side is all the sides. Like I'm not fighting for Democrats, I'm not fighting for Republicans. I'm just fighting for the truth. So, and I deeply love and care about, especially Southern people who are religious, because I think that they've been targeted because of their goodness and because of their loyalty and because of their wanting to be good, because that made them because they were the targets because they're good loyal voters, they're good loyal community. And so if you can latch onto that community and steal that loyalty, then you can do it. But they appealed to this good, literally good group of people, and
Mhm.
that's what makes me real mad. So sorry, preface.
Yeah.
So here's how it started. FDR coming out of World War One. There was a Great Depression, and people were doing very badly. And he was the president from like 1933 to 1945. He was our longest president. And one of the things that he did in his inauguration speech was invoke God for the first time. And nobody had done that before. People don't realize that actually In God We Trust wasn't on our dollar until the 1950s. So he was one of the first ones to do it. But basically he was like, Jesus would want us to help poor people. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to make social subsidies for people who don't have a place to live and don't have food. And we're also, on the flip side, going to make sure that these big corporations who don't care if you have a living wage, they don't care if you have enough food to eat, or don't care about the medical care that you have, don't care if they're keeping you in working conditions that are making you sick, or that are unfair. We're going to make sure that they can't do that anymore. And there's this group called the National Association of Manufacturers, and they still exist, but they're the equivalent of this group back then was more like Davos now. It was like the Davos of the United States. And they were like, hold on, okay, if you guys are going to come in and regulate us, then we're going to have to pay people a lot more, and we're going to have to change up our equipment so it's not making people sick, and that's going to cost us a lot of money. So we need you to not regulate us. So what we need to do is we need to convince people that corporations are good, so that they will vote for somebody who votes for someone who supports corporations. Because people we're still a democracy. Like, you still need the majority vote. So they started out putting out these advertisements, and in like 1937, their advertising budget was like $36,000, and it jumped to like $736,000. And so in the 30s, that was a lot. And then the next few years, it went to millions. And at first, people didn't buy it because they were like, okay, this is you can very clearly see through this, and like FDR called it out. But then they got better and better at it, and they wanted to start linking faith, freedom, and jobs. And their goal was to have every American hear a commercial, whether it was like a mattress commercial or whatever, because they would pay for all these companies to do these commercials, linking faith, freedom, and jobs 6 times a day. So like, you wake up, you turn, like, the radio comes on, you hear it. You get on the bus to work, you hear it again. You talk about the water cooler, it's on the evening news, like linking those things. And so, and the culmination of that was in Reagan. So Reagan ended up being the president that the National Association of Manufacturers was sort of producing after 40 years. Like, that's really what it culminated in. And that's what resulted in trickle-down economics, where you trust the people at the top and you go, thank you for the job that I have. Thank you for the position that I'm in. I appreciate you and trust you for whatever you're going to do. And if you have money at the top, then it's just going to trickle down. And that never happened. Fast forward to today, there are a lot of similarities between Reagan's presidency and Trump's presidency, not just in like surface level similarities, which are like that inflation was happening at the time and there was a hostage crisis at the time, which are like things that you can point to on a list. But the Make America Great Again slogan, all of this is sort of recycling. And the thing about the billionaires that they're frustrated about is that they don't want to be regulated. And that goes for both like especially oil companies, because they don't want to have to spend money keeping things environmentally friendly, because then it's going to cost them a ton of money. They don't want to have to spend, and environmentally friendly also means their workers won't get sick. People say all the time, why did manufacturing jobs leave the United States? They left the United States because the US isn't going to tolerate human rights violations. They're not going to tolerate it. So you can't make people sick. You can't pay them less than the minimum wage. Like,
right.
You can't treat them like dirt, but you can in Myanmar, because in that country, their government doesn't care about them. So now what's going on is that with the tech bros, their philosophy is that they're so frustrated about being regulated, because when they want to, like Ramaswamy, when he wants to put out a drug, he, like, from the pharmaceutical company, he's got to test it 100 different ways before he can put it out to people. They're claiming that stifles innovation, right? That makes us less able to be creative and to produce. And Elon Musk says the same thing, even though his company has a injury rate of 9 times higher than all other companies in his sector. Like, they just don't want to have to care about people that they think don't matter. And that's the really tough piece here. And there's another big, like, deep dive into them thinking that people don't matter, but that's essentially the trajectory. I know it's a long story, but that's sort of how things got where we are today.
Yeah, and I think, them coming from the tech industry, and I've been in the tech industry for 35 years, so their thinking is break it, fix it, like fail fast, fail forward. And that works kind of, sort of, right? For technology companies and coming up with new technology, new innovations. Where that doesn't work is government,
Yeah,
right?
you're
Like
breaking
you
people.
can't break the government and then
Right.
expect everything to just work. So I
Yeah.
think them applying that philosophy to government and honestly society, because they're so rich and powerful now and they have so much control, they're actually pushing more for this societal change and narrative than the tech industry, right? So I think that's kind of the real threat from these tech bros and billionaires today.
Yeah, you think about the loved ones and the families in the industrial age who's, you know, the the father and the husband went to work, and there was a fire in the brick building, and the windows were boarded up, and everybody died because there was no safety regulations or anything like that, or union protection. I mean, it's pretty sad.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also amazing to me to hear the people on the right like argue for this. I'm just like, wait a second, like you don't want to regulate anything. No, because that stifles innovation and blah blah blah. And so I'm like, you're not pro union. Like as a worker, you don't think you have rights and to have work in a safe environment. Well, that's not what I'm saying, right? They immediately start walking backwards once you start presenting it to how it would apply to them in their daily lives and their jobs. And I'm like, this is what you're advocating for. Oh no, that's not going to happen. Trump's not going to do that. He said he's not going to do that. I'm like,
So
okay.
he said he's not going to do that thing. It's
Yeah.
crazy because
Yeah.
I put my lawyer brain on when I hear that. So, like for example, with Project 2025, what he said was, "I've never read it," and he
Right.
said, I'm not a part of that." Like I believe that you haven't read it, and I believe that you weren't part of creating it. That doesn't mean that you're not going to implement it. Right. And when it comes to like disobeying the court orders, he says, "I always obey the court orders." That doesn't mean you won't in the future. He's just very careful with the words that he uses to try to manipulate people into believing what he wants them to believe. And I personally don't think that Donald Trump is an ideologue. I don't think that he has a whole lot of values that he's trying to push, but I think that the people standing behind him do. So if
Well,
even
and
if you
he's
trust Trump, don't trust these guys that are behind him.
right. And I mean, he's even put the authors of Project 2025 into political offices. So he
Absolutely.
can't say that he's not. Like, I agree. Like, I don't think he's read it. Right. I don't think he understands it at all. But he's putting these people in power that supported him to get there where he is. And I think, honestly, I don't know if he's going to be surprised at what happens under him or not. Right? Like, did you not read the roadmap? Because like the roadmap in Project 25 is happening exactly line by line right now.
Yeah, and there's this guy who the New Right, who JD Vance is kind of the spokesperson for the New Right group. Um, there's this guy named Curtis Yarvin, Yarvin, and he's sort of like the philosopher of this group. And he has a plan for Donald Trump that they've been following to a T so far. It's called the Butterfly Revolution, and it has a lot of overlap with Project 2025. These things, and like just to give you an example, step 2 of the plan is the acronym for it is RAGE, retire all government employees. And like nobody would have thought of that, right? If before the election happened, or even before January happened, if we would have sat down and said, okay, what do we think Trump's going to do for his first 5 things? Nobody would have said that, right? That he's going to dismantle the federal government immediately.
Right.
Like,
Fire half of the government.
right? Nobody
Okay.
would have thought of that. So it's
Right.
like, where did you get this idea? Oh,
Hmm.
the 2 places where like JD Vance and the guy who you just hired to be the head of the Office of Management and Budget got their ideas.
So what do we think? Like, is there going to be anything positive for the farmers, the millions of farmers that have supported Trump, and a lot of federal workers probably supported Trump. I mean, government contracts and everything. It seems like that's kind of the nature and history as far as that where that party is, the loyalty remains. Is there any benefit for those voters that instilled their trust in the right?
Yeah, so one piece of comfort can be that I think there are exceptions to tariffs. So behind the scenes, like if Trump wants to come out and sound like a tough guy and a big shot and be like, yeah, we're going to tariff all these countries, everybody's going to bow down to the United States, but then behind the scenes, like give all these companies exceptions or like that the farmers would need. that might happen. And so, and I look for that to happen, because if there's one thing we know about Trump, it's that he wants to give the people what they want,
Sure.
which is why there was going to be no federal ban on reproductive care, because that's not popular. Like, he wants to give the people what they want. And I think one other thing, and this is long-term not a benefit, but short-term it's a benefit, is I think he's not going to let the Federal Reserve set their own interest rates. I think he's going to make them lower it like Nixon did. The problem is that it caused inflation immediately during Jimmy Carter's presidency. So it will cause inflation pretty immediately. And my guess is the thing that he's going to try to do, because it's likely that Democrats will take back the House and the Senate in 2026, that he'll do it. He'll time it that way. One thing that I try to remind people of is that you can assume that these politicians are always 6 steps ahead of you. They have not only political money, right? They've got oil money. They've got money from insurance companies. Like, the richest people in the world are invested in these people doing well, and they are planning out all the chess moves and all the possible outcomes. So they know what's possible and what's happening. The thing we have to look for is what they wouldn't be anticipating. Like, if they're counting on us to not be watching them, or if they're counting on us to not be able to organize, which Democrats are so bad at, just so bad.
They really are.
And the thing that makes me insane is that I'm like, okay, because I was working in the legislature as a speechwriter when this was going on, and I was like, all you guys are doing is advertising to your base so that you can get more money, so that you can advertise back to your base. You're not changing anybody's mind. You're not targeting the swing voters. This is you're sucking it up, because the entire point is these people already agree with you, but you need the majority. So I think that they need to shift their focus and go, okay, if we need people to jump on our side, what do we need to tell them? What do we need to say to get to their heart and their spirit and the thing that they actually care about, so that they know that they can trust us? Because I just believe that when somebody shows you their heart, that most people can see it, and they'll go, okay, you know what? That sounds right to me. That's why I love Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's my man. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the problem is career politicians, right? So I think, people like AOC and Jasmine Crockett that are now out there talking about, like, here's the stuff we need to fix, right? And they haven't been in the game for 60 years or however long Schumer's been in there, and Nancy Pelosi and lots of other Republicans, right? Like, we've turned being a politician into a career. And
Totally.
that's not what the founding fathers had meant for it to be at all. So I think, one of the things, if we get more, and people, I think, listening to this is like, well, you've just said all this stuff. These billionaires have all the control, all the power. I'm just a single person. I have no power. And that is absolutely not true.
Yeah.
Because as a person, you can vote. Like, until they take the vote away, which I don't think they're going to do soon, hopefully. But until they do that, you still have a voice. And I think people need to realize that if we unite together, right, instead stop talking these narratives that divide us and start talking about the common things that unite us, and we vote for what we want to see for change. Because people are like, well, you'll never see politicians pass term limits. You'll never see politicians pass campaign finance reform. I'm like, really? Because like AOC and Jasmine Crockett have been talking about it. So if you elect those people into office, that will change the system. Or you run yourself, right? Remember what Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? So if you don't like it, fix it. You have the power. So don't get disheartened. Don't feel that you have no contribution to make as a person. Every single person has a voice. Every single person can exercise that voice by voting. So vote with your heart. Vote from the center. And vote for humans, damn it.
Amen. Amen. All the amens.
That's my little soapbox.
Yeah.
I loved it.
We just need to get past this, like, Crips versus Bloods, like Democrats versus Republic things, man. Like, we need to just, like, get back to those family barbecues, where everybody comes over and has a beer and a burger and a brat or whatever.
Yeah.
And we all get along. And at the very least, if we don't agree on something, let's talk it out. Have those discussions. You know,
I kind of have this philosophy. So one of the ways that I'm able to be a political analyst on some of these shows is that I liken the political parties to a family. It makes it a lot easier to think about it if you just assign them people in your mind.
sure.
And so one of the things that I've realized is that some folks in the Republican Party from older generations feel like a lot of the Democrats are like the brother and sister who left home and they left them home taking care of their sick parent. Like they feel like they're the ones that were left holding up the fort, like holding down the fort. And that you guys went off and you guys went to fancy schools and made a bunch of money and we're here holding up the thing that we believe is important and you guys just left us.
Right.
And I feel like that I just feel that from people. And I think that that just needs to be acknowledged by people who are on the left because you shouldn't have to stay in a place where you don't belong. Like I didn't belong in Indianapolis. I was never comfortable there. It wasn't a place where I was happy or had friends. My mom, like I used to get calls from the rabbi when I moved away that was like, you have to come home. Your mother keeps calling me. She's crying at the dishwasher. Like, please come home. And I was like, and I came home a lot. And I still do, but like you have to be able to be who you are. And that being who you are is also a really tough thing for people who are more conservative because they view it as a lack of discipline rather than being who you are. Like you weren't disciplined enough to stay home and do the right thing. And so it's like the prodigal son story. Though I think like it's really about brothers and sisters coming together and realizing that everybody has a role and that the people who felt constrained actually had a lot more freedom than they ever realized.
I like how you presented that too. I mean, you presented it perfectly. It's like, okay, I stayed home. I did the right thing. I'm being loyal to myself, my farm, my upbringing, and everything else. And I think some of the tension might come from that. Some folks on the right might think that some people on the left are like thinking that they're stupid. Like, oh, you think I'm dumb because of this, and then that just pisses them off further because they're like you said, doing the right thing,
Yeah.
Upholding their values, protecting their house, and that's just got to be more fuel to the fire. That's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been telling Democrats for months now, we cannot pretend, and it's not even we anymore. They cannot pretend that they are the party of empathy that cares about people and not acknowledge the deplorables comment. Because I can't tell you how many times, like with some of the videos that I posted, people can go on and see the comments and they'll be like, why should I listen to Democrats? They think we're stupid. Why should I listen to them? They think we're deplorable. And like, if I heard, like a 17-year-old kid say that, like if I said, like, go talk to this person, they'd be like, why? He hates me. He thinks I'm stupid. That would break my heart. Like like if it was somebody that I cared about that said that, I would be like, oh, you're hurt. And it's really hard to admit that your feelings are hurt, especially when you come from a strong background where you had to be strong for everybody else.
Right.
And so you can't expect people to admit that in the moment, but simply acknowledging it allows for there to be a lowering of defenses. And I think that's actually how the DEI thing needed to go, right? Because DEI was never about unqualified people of color taking jobs from qualified white people. It was about unqualified white people taking jobs from qualified people of color, right? That was what it was about.
Right.
And so everybody keeps saying like, we can't keep apologizing for the past. We can't keep feeling guilty. And I agree, but there's a certain level of acknowledgement that hasn't happened that needs to happen. And the people who are still holding on to that haven't had their own parts acknowledged. They haven't had their own, like being made fun of forever. People ask me before, like, why did they call people libtards? I'm like, well, liberals made fun of them for being stupid and uneducated for years and years and years and used it as a platform. And while they were feeding the rest of the country and making sure that we stayed true to our values, and now you expect them to just embrace you. Like now that they have power, they're going to tease you.
It's the back and forth. Yeah.
Right.
What you do, and if you think about them like people and like a family, it gets a lot easier to understand.
Yeah. No, and I like that. There's a lot of truth to that. And Republican supporters, friends, and family members that I have are actually very intelligent people.
Yeah.
Very smart, intelligent people, and to be kind of like packed like that and put into this box, because Trump may say something that's kind of, well, I mean, Trump says stuff, and
Bonkers.
but it's easy to throw everybody into that group. Well, he's not the entire group. He's just the person that's speaking for that party at that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole name calling, like I said, Crips versus Bloods thing, it's just ridiculous, man. Let's get back to the backyard party for sure.
Yeah. I can tell you this story really fast. So, and I've been dominating the conversation. I'm sorry. So please just tell me
No, that's why we brought you.
You're good. That's why we brought you here.
Love it.
So one of the reasons why I do what I do now. So I told you my husband's from rural Georgia, and his mom is his favorite human. Like he would tell you that I was, but he respects her heart so deeply, and he was the weird genius in his family. Like it came out of nowhere. He was like on the debate team when his brother played football, kind of thing. And he was short, so he got teased a lot. And so he grew up and became very successful, but it was nothing like the version of like hunting and fishing, and which he loves fishing. It's his favorite thing ever, but he just didn't grow up to do that. But he still has immense respect for his mother and for the lifestyle. And so it was easy for me to marry into that family. It was super easy. And also, it doesn't matter what religion you are. If you were raised super religious, you will fit right in any community because you grew up with that same upbringing, same teaching. I don't care what it is. Like it's the same stuff. So one night we went to have dinner with them about a year ago, and they live across the street from the little white church where they got married and where their grandparents got married, and on their farm and I told you guys about that. So I walked in and they were watching this show on YouTube, and they're in their 70s, and they had it up on the TV, and I seen that they had watched like 6 episodes of it, and I was like, what are you guys watching? And it was this tiny Asian lady building her own house in the jungle using rope and bamboo. I was like, what the hell are you guys watching? They were like, this little lady can do anything. And they were telling me how she and her husband grow these beautiful vegetables, and they take them to the farmer's market every morning. And like they build these incredible things for the community. And watching them talk about this and how excited they got, I was like, this is the least racist thing I've ever seen. Like these people see themselves in this tiny Asian lady and her family across the world, right? And some people who look nothing like them, and they admire and respect them for their ability to cultivate the land. And nobody's forcing them to watch this, right? Like they're doing this voluntarily because they're enjoying it. Right. And I was like, we just gave up on a whole group of people. Like we just wrote off a whole group of people. And I love telling that story because it made me think about like if my mother-in-law had an illegal immigrant child who was hungry in front of her, there's no chance in hell she's letting that child leave without feeding them. I'm not willing to pretend anymore like Republicans are heartless. I'm just not, because they're not. They're just not. And I love seeing that. It's just a great picture of what the truth was.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
All right, so now it's time for some fun, Madeline. Now it's time for some fun. We've reached the portion of the episode that we like to call Jared's 5. Jared's 5. So, Jared's going to ask you 5 questions, and I think he's going to ask you a question from the previous guest, which was Simon King. He's a comedian. He's incredible. His episode is still in editing and production right now, but yeah, he's awesome. So there'll be a question from him, and there'll be a question for the next guest as well, and some fun things in there as well.
Love it. Let's go.
All right, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, first one. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Goodfellas.
Nice.
Easy because the soundtrack too, man. And Joe Pesci cracked me up so hard.
Yeah. And Joe Pesci, if you're listening, you got to come on here, buddy.
Oh my God, when he's hanging out with his mom and like she brings out the picture of the dogs, he's like, look at his picture. This one's going this way, this one's going that way. It's amazing. It just kills me every time.
Well, he cracks me up, that guy.
Yeah.
I loved him in Lethal Weapon as well. He was hilarious.
So funny.
All right. What was your favorite cartoon that you watched as a kid?
Mm. I mean, I don't want to say SpongeBob. I want to say something else. Um,
Hey, if it was your favorite, go ahead and say it. It's all
I
right.
feel like I'm missing something coming back to it. I love anything. I love anything with songs in it. So and I love the Rugrats too. I think the Rugrats might be a good one.
Yep.
Love the Rugrats.
All right, we'll go with Rugrats
Okay. Okay.
with closet SpongeBob.
Closet
Um,
SpongeBob.
all right. What's one thing you think people should know about you that maybe they don't?
I'm a drummer.
Nice.
What? Me too.
Yes, I play the
Yes.
drum.
Dude. Nice.
Yeah, I love playing the drums. I played in a grunge band during COVID. It was fun.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Sitting there with your mask, drumming away.
I'm like, it's the only instrument that you get to play sitting down, guys.
Right. All right. What advice would you give your teenage self?
That you that if you want to live in a world where you feel loved, that all you need to do is just love everybody else.
A great one.
Good. Yeah.
All right. So Ian kind of prefaced it. Our last guy was a comedian, our last guest, right? Simon King. So
Okay.
his question's kind of out there. And it aligns with new findings in physics about parallel universes. You ready?
Okay, here we go.
All right. So
We get to
if
follow
every
Simon King too as well.
right. So if every decision equals a new parallel universe, which
Okay.
branches off into many other universes,
Okay.
which is the decision you wish you could go back and change and follow that path instead of the one you're on today?
Dang.
Pretty deep.
Yeah. So when I was in college, I wanted to be a singer. I want to be a singer my whole life. And for a while, I was going back and forth from New York to try to audition and stuff. And I found myself a manager. And he basically said to me, why, after a few months, like, why would I put you up for anything when I've got like all these girls here who can do the same thing that you can do? Like, you either need to move here or like I can't, and I just didn't have faith that I could make it. I just didn't believe it. And now that I see being a musician so differently than I did then, which was like, you got to make it rather than just like, you're living in it and it's like a piece of you, because everything feels like a rat race when you're younger and like you have to get there immediately. I might go back and move. I might move to New York and even if I needed to finish my education, I'd just do it there so that I could still try, like at least try.
Good
Awesome.
for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, we're glad you chose this universe instead. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tell us more about your website.
Yes. So, and I just started a Substack last week. So it's under it's under What Madeline Says still. And if you ever can't find me on different platforms, it's just underscores. It's what_Madeline_says on a couple of them. But the one that has the most content is on TikTok. So, but on What Madeline Says, I put a lot of my clips from TV because I try to get booked on as many channels as I could. And it's funny because my mom, when I first started going on Fox News, because I haven't been going on network news. I've been going on Live Now from Fox. And then there's this wonderful newscaster from Minneapolis who brings me on. And the ladies who brought me on genuinely want to give their people a neutral position on things. And they trust me to do that. And it's hard when you get blamed for not being neutral when you're just telling the truth. Like that's the hardest part. And that sucks. And I think they're cool because they're like, yeah, that's part of it. Like we deal with that all the time. But I was like, my mom was like, I'm not okay with you being on Fox News. And I was like, Mom, that's the exact place that I need to go. Like I need to be in places where people disagree with me because I don't need to preach to the choir. And there are times when actually liberals disagree with me. Like, Jared watches it all the time because he comes to my live. They're like, you're too nice and you're not fighting and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I was like, you're not affecting me, like, because I already know what I believe in. It's not going to change. So there are clips of my there's clips of my stuff on there. Sometimes I get quoted in local or very few times on national publications on legal issues. And so my stuff's on there as well. But I have lives almost every day. I love doing them because I love talking to people. And one of the things that it teaches me is where the holes in my arguments are. So like one of the things that our founding fathers genuinely wanted was for us to learn how to argue with each other. Like the whole principle of democracy was convince me, right? But where we're at now is I don't want to convince you, I'm going to manipulate you. I'm going to brain hack you. Right. That's where we're at now. And somebody said to me the other day, he was like, you think that Republicans don't have critical thinking skills and that they just accept whatever. And I was like, sir, if a boulder dropped on your leg and your leg broke, I wouldn't say you have a dumb leg. Right. Like that's what it's structured to do. Right. I'm sure it walked just fine before then. People got brain hacked. Right. Like people understood, like the people who were in charge understood how the human brain works and brain hacked people. So I'm not saying it's anything against Republicans or people who like Trump in the slightest. Right. I'm saying that they got brain hacked into agreeing with something that they didn't actually agree with, because when you ask them to tell you their values, they won't align. And I'm not saying that happens in every case, but probably in 70% of them. So I please, anybody who's listening, come onto my lives, challenge me, give me an opportunity to fill in the gaps in my thinking so that maybe you can teach me where I need to make my worldview bigger, or I can help you see something that you hadn't seen before. So I please come on the lives. I love to do them.
Yeah, I'd love to see debate taught in high school more. Like it should be a required class for at least 2 years.
I love that. That would be awesome.
So people can argue intelligently their sides, their perspectives, but it also allows you that perspective of the other side, right? Because in debate, you have to research both sides so you can have the argument ready for what they're going to bring you. Yes. So I would love to see that in high schools, just like add that to the curriculum, 2 years, required class. You can't get out of it. Sorry. Have a nice day.
Sorry.
But yeah.
I love that too. And I think the way you win is by anticipating arguments. You have to know, you have to understand the other side's best argument. And that's one of the things I did as a jury consultant too, was I was like, the first question that I always asked when I went in was like, if we lose, why are we losing? Like, what is going to be the thing that causes us to lose if we lose? And then I have to make the best argument that I can for it in order to be able to beat it.
All right. So last thing out of the 5 questions, you have to ask a question for our next guest.
Okay. So, I love that. That's a great idea.
What you gonna ask the next guest?
Okay. So this kind of goes back to my answer, I guess, to this past question, but I don't know if you guys like country music. It comes from this Luke Combs song that I just listened to yesterday. So the question is, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? And not like this podcast. Like if you weren't doing this job, what would you be doing? Because Luke Combs has this great song. Like I'd still be doing this. So it just reminded me of that.
Awesome. Great question.
Bag liquor, a couple buddies in the band.
Yeah. He's like, doesn't matter. Playing on a hardwood floor, doesn't matter.
Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
It's awesome. All right. Well, everybody. This has been Madeline Summerville. You can see her TikTok at What Madeline Says. She's got her website, What Madeline Says. And remember to use the underscores when looking for her. Go check out her website. Also follow at Gen X Dad and at Gen X Jared. And we're at Common X Podcast on every other platform. This has been episode 26. You guys are great. We love you. And thanks for joining us, Madeline.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week. and hopefully from, content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support. And we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.